Glitter Girl here with a new mini adventure for you. Mini adventures are Glitter Girl episodes that are under 10 minutes and focus on one element of the page. In this case, it's one design element, the pennant. So for today's layout, I'm creating a page with 3 photos and 3 pennants. I'm starting with 2 pattern papers in contrasting colors, one pink and one green, and I've cut them to 3 inches wide. Then cut the pennant edge at the bottom by cutting into the center from each corner. Then I'm just going to place them evenly spaced across the 12 by 12 background from left to right, and I want the 2 on the either side to be even at the bottom and then the one in the middle to be offset. In this case, it's going to go up a bit to give me a bit more space for a title block at the bottom of the page. So then I can just adhere the top of each strip and trim off the extra. Then this design element is going to determine everything else on my page. So I have 3 photos. I'm going to put 1 on each pennant. And I started with these at 4 by 4 inches, but you can see they're a little bit too big because that would add up to the full 12-inch width. So I decided to keep the one in the middle at the 4 by 4 size and trim the other 2 down to 3 by 3. I'm going to mat each one with just a really small border of this aqua pattern paper. And that's just to give a little bit more variety in the color and bring in this kind of party look. So each of these photos is a behind the scenes or getting ready photo for a birthday party. So this was making the cake for the party. And that's why I wanted to bring in the pennants, because the shape gives you that idea of the decorations that are pretty traditional for a birthday party. These 3 by 4 cards are from Simple Stories in their Snap collection, and I use some of them at the regular 3 by 4 size, but I also really like cutting some of them down to smaller pieces, so if there's something that's just a nice motif, you can make them into any other size, just like that little camera. Now, I'm going to move it in just a second because I started with the idea of putting it over to the side and then realized I could have a better idea. This 3 by 4 card from the same pack, which says It's a Happy Day. Since it's 3 by 4, that means it's the same width as the green pennants. So I'm going to use that as my title block and place it below the central pennant, and then I can put the camera just above, right in the middle of the page. And because it's ever so slightly more narrow than the green, you can see that then the green is still that pennant shape, even though I've covered up the majority of that of the divot in the middle. I've actually left enough that you can still see that it's not just a plain block. So I like that little detail. Most of the embellishments I'm going to add here come from this 12 by 12 sticker sheet from Simple Stories Daily Grind collection. And what I wanted to do was add a little cluster above the 2 smaller photos so that I could give them a bit more weight on the page without making them any wider. So I could add above or below. I'm just going to add above on both of them to give each one a bit more presence on the page, but without making them so wide that the page gets too cluttered. This sticker sheet has lots of things like days of the week, months of the year, but also has some nice easy motifs to use like arrows and hearts and speech bubbles. So I'm adding a few different ones in there to work in the date and some phrases, but also some hearts and arrows. And because there are several different blocks that have different words on them, I can mix them around until I get something that makes sense when I've put it together. So that yellow sticker that's all the way over there to the right actually says reality check, but I've tucked it behind the photo so that you just see the reality, and then the sticker to the left of it says everyday, so I get that idea of everyday reality. Just using the words that are most relevant to what I'm going to include in the journaling, and then adding the little hearts and arrows on pop dots to have a little bit more variety in the dimension there. And to the central photo, I just wanted to add a little something to the top so that it's a little bit dressed up, but I didn't need to add all the extra weight. So I have this tiny little silhouette file, which is a circle with a heart cut out of the top, and I've just tucked it behind right there in the middle at the top of the page. Since I've added the yellow square as my title block down at the bottom, I'm not going to do a lot of title work, but I did want to add in just one little phrase. So I'm using these tiny little tile letter stickers from October Afternoon. They come in a pack with 2 alphabets in the same color. So you get these little tiles, but you also get an alphabet that's individual letters that are cut out. And I'm just adding the words "any excuse" to the bottom of the title block because that's what's going to tie in with my journaling. I'm going to add my journaling to the top of the page in the far left and right columns. And what I wanted to write about was how I will look for any excuse to bake up a batch of cupcakes. So that's why I wanted to add that into the title. So there's the writing. And now just on to finishing touches. I wanted to bring in a little bit more texture. So I'm going to add yellow and pink baker's twine. I'm going to cut 3 lengths of each that are roughly the same so that I have something to add to each column on the page. So since I've started with the 3 pennants and the 3 photos, everything is kind of in 3s. And then this is some American Crafts glitter tape. And I've cut that into a pennant shape as well. And I'm stapling the baker's twine to the top. And in this case, you're not going to see that it's a pennant shape because I cut it a little bit too long, and I'm going to tuck it behind the stickers so you wouldn't really know that it was that shape. But if you place it somewhere else on the page, you could certainly repeat the pennant motif. And I'm going to repeat it all the way over to the right as well. And then just tucking the twine loosely behind the photo so that it then comes at the bottom and has a little bit of movement, and I can secure the top of the twine to the back of the layout with some washi tape so it stays nice and clean. You can also cut it across the top, but then it can fray, so I just find it easier to tape it on the back. So there is another strip of the same thing all the way over to the far right, and that one I did get short enough that you can see that it's a pennant. And then I just added a tiny little bit of the glitter tape to the top center of the page. And that last batch of baker's twine I tied in a bow and stapled at the bottom of the title block. My last finishing touch are these yellow enamel dots from Doodlebug, and I'm just adding them around all the embellishment that was already on the page to have a little bit of a different texture before everything is finished. So now I have the paper texture and stickers, but also the twine and the enamel dots. So I have something a little bit more smooth and something a little more rough. So that's going to bring this page to a close for this week, and I would love to see you give these pennants a try. You could add more photos by replacing the title block and the central camera motif there with more pictures, or print your pictures smaller and add some below the photos on the left and the right. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at 2peasinabucket.com.